All right, so well, I can tell you that the US has now passed that 100,000 mark with 604 new deaths reported in the country. They're now sitting at 100,409, and that's by far the worst in the world. Yeah, we'll, for more on this and the latest in the United States of America, we're now joined by John Leboutillier, who's a former Republican member of the House of Representatives via Skype. Thanks so much indeed for joining us. Always great to talk to you. It's shocking, 100,409 people have died now from COVID-19. All right, so it looks like we've lost him. We're going to try and get him back on the line. But again, just to give you an idea of just how serious the problem is in the United States, total cases 1.7 million. 1.7 million and 13,000 new cases in the country just overnight. And when you compare that with South Africa's story, of course, I mean, it's staggering the numbers that we're dealing with. 100,000 deaths now, 604 people dying overnight. And we're going to explore that with John Leboutillier in a few moments' time. In fact, he's on the line now. John, thanks so much indeed for joining us.
Hello, Peter.
100,409 people have died now.
Yeah, well, it's projected to keep going up, by the way, that by June 13, we'll hit 113,000. I think I have the date right, but it's 113,000 is the next projected threshold. We are opening up. Even here where I am, I'm right outside the epicenter. I'm on Long Island, right outside Manhattan, New York. And tomorrow, the 27th of May, we start phase one of a four-step reopening here, all keyed to hospitalization, ICU availability, hospital bed availability, all that kind of thing. If it spikes back up here in New York, they will then shut back down those areas where it's spiking up. So there's a plan. But around America, this weekend, which is a holiday weekend, it's Memorial Day yesterday. It's a 3-day weekend. The weather was beautiful across most of the country. People have been locked up, cooped up for 70 days. So you could expect they want to get out, go to the beach, be outside, have fun. But there was a lot of examples of no masks, people too close together, pool parties, beach parties, and even before that, some of the areas that had been opening in Texas, Georgia, they have seen an increase in the cases.
All right. So, I mean, history tells us that there are second, sometimes even third waves that can be even more problematic than the first. And looking at the reports that our correspondent in New York had just filed, it is concerning, as you were saying, that so many people treating it like a holiday, and some just saying, you know, life goes on, we can't be scared of COVID-19. But with 100,000 deaths, it is pretty scary not to take it seriously.
Right. Well, and by the way, you're talking about a second wave that's projected next fall and winter, September, October, November. This thing, I just saw someone explain it. This is a second spike in the first wave, you know, which began in February and March. And we've been driving it down. And now with the easing and opening up, it's going back up in some areas. Not here in New York, Connecticut, New Jersey. I have to say, where I am, which is the epicenter for the whole country of this damn virus, the three governors of our three states have really done a good job and a draconian bunch of restrictions to force people to stay in and stop the social spread of this disease, the community spread of it.
I often talk about symbolism and how a leader behaves and shows the way often gets replicated by the people below him. And I wonder if Donald Trump's refusal to wear masks is having an effect that a lot of people are just saying, if our commander-in-chief doesn't need to wear a mask, then I'm not going to wear one.
No question. I think it's a really bad image. Contrasted yesterday on Memorial Day, which is the day we honor our war dead, with Joe Biden making his first outside of his house public appearance since March 10th. He's been in his house doing TV interviews ever since. But yesterday he went out with his wife, dressed in a mask. All his Secret Service agents had masks. They went to lay a wreath at a Delaware cemetery for the fallen soldiers, and it looked excellent. It was a great appearance and a real contrast to Trump and Pence not wearing masks.
All right, so I suppose part of the challenge is that this COVID-19 has spread differently across the United States. Some states really having much smaller problems than others. Has this contributed, do you think, to the overall attitude?
Oh, definitely. You know, I have to tell you, this country, as we've seen over the last 20 years, is divided on many things, including on the lethality of this virus. And Republican voters, and I am a Republican, but I'm not one of the ones I'm talking about, they are hearing on talk radio and seeing on Fox and other conservative broadcast entities a skeptical view about how bad this thing is and how dangerous the virus is. And that's really coming from Trump.
All right, so on the other side, I mean, we've got Donald Trump. He wants to open the economy as quickly as he can. And I suppose another symbol for him is Wall Street, number 11 Wall Street, open for trading with traders physically present for the first time in, what, over 2 months?
Over 2 months, there were people there carrying the trades around. The trading was going on computer-wise during the 2 months, but now it's sort of getting back to a sense of normalcy a little bit. They're wearing masks. They're still being smart about it. But it is part of the Trump campaign, which is we're reopening. The economy's coming back. And this is his line. You hear him say it. I built a great economy once, and I'll do it again. That's what he's going to campaign on. But meanwhile, a week from this Friday, we're going to get a new unemployment figure for the month of April that everybody, including White House economists, project to be over 20%. And a president running for re-election in that kind of economy is running uphill. And the polling shows that he's trailing Joe Biden virtually everywhere at the moment. But we still have 5.5 months to go.
All right, so the Dow is up, the S&P is up, the NASDAQ is up today. All of this is, I'm sure, going to be hyped by the president.
Be hyped by the president. I don't know that that has any effect on the voters. The voters are not in the stock market. The polling shows most people do not believe the economy is in good shape, nor do they think it's going to be in good shape later this year. And most economists believe it is going to take a year to a year and a half to get this sinking trend turned around.
All right. So how has Joe Biden been talking through this COVID-19? Because I guess if these deaths continue to spike as we get closer to the elections, a lot of people are going to be saying, who do I want to lead me through the rest of this?
Right. Well, I think Joe Biden, I mean, this pandemic has shaped the entire campaign really around the effectiveness of Donald Trump. If you think he's doing a good job, then you'll probably vote for him. Otherwise, you've got Joe Biden sitting over there who is not really making a lot of noise or news. He's doing interviews all day long from his house on TV, but he hasn't been out campaigning. And I think this is good for Joe Biden. I think to keep the focus on Trump, every day Trump says something insane. And every day, Trump's numbers are going down. There's a story I just got before you called me from Pennsylvania, one of the key states, where senior citizens who voted for Trump 4 years ago are now leaving Trump and going to Joe Biden. And that's been seen in polling in Arizona and Florida and Georgia, too. Older Trump voters have had enough of Trump, and they're willing to go to Joe Biden.
All right. And this, as we were saying, 17 states seeing rises in COVID-19 infections. This is a problematic statistic.
Yeah, and you know what, too? Where it's beginning to rise is in rural areas, areas where Trump did well politically. The first batch, where I'm coming from, was in the inner cities, which are more Democratic than Republican. Now it's going out into the more spread out rural farmland areas of the Midwest. And it's spreading there. And the problem there, Peter, is they don't have great hospitals. They don't have enough hospitals or enough health care to take care of them if this thing really takes off there.
We saw the president talking about people going back to churches. Our own president here has said, yes, from next month, people can go back to churches, but only 50 people at a time. Is there the same kind of restriction in the US? Because we know that gatherings like that can be extremely problematic during a COVID-19 pandemic.
Well, every governor runs his or her own state and decides what the limits are. So even though Trump made a big deal last Thursday about announcing that I'm opening up all the churches, blah, blah, he doesn't really have the power to do it. It's up to the governor of a state. And it depends. If your state is opening things up, then you can go to some limited type of socially distanced church service. And I think some are doing that. Now, some people are in open defiance of that. Some of the southern churches of the last few Sundays have had huge outpourings. And the pastors have been getting into legal trouble because of it. They're encouraging a breaking of the governor's orders. And it's not smart. Their parishioners are going to get sick from it.
All right. So, I mean, as we start to kind of wrap up this conversation, COVID-19, I'm sure, dominating the headlines everywhere. You're starting to warm up in terms of temperatures, and this virus seems to thrive, well, supposedly not do well in hot temperatures. So might we see numbers coming down? What are the scientists saying over there?
They're not sure that this virus is defeated by warm weather. That model was always on other flus and other viruses, but we don't know about this one. This one has spiked up in southern parts of our country. It's spiking and it's hot now in Florida, Georgia, Houston, Texas has had a big upswing. I don't think the scientists know for sure that heat is an issue here. Hopefully it is, but we'll see.
All right. You know what? We're going to have to leave it there, but thanks very much indeed for joining us again and sharing your insights with us on a very complex problem. Thanks so much, John Leboutillier, a former Republican member of the House of Representatives, joining us via Skype. And another update for you. The total deaths now, 100,413 in the United States. They had been close to that 100,000 figure for a while, but 608 deaths now, bringing it up to 100,413 across the United States. And you were listening to John Leboutillier there saying that we're talking about a second spike in the first wave. So this is still a problem, and the difference is this in the number of states. There's some at chronic levels and others not so much, and perhaps explaining some of the people not wearing masks, not social distancing, going out to the beaches and just carrying on as if this COVID-19 thing isn't as big of a problem as is the numbers are suggesting.